and white and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
I'm Dan McLennan.
And I'm Mike Booth.
United go down to their first defeat since October as a self-destructive 5-minute spell cost them a chance of getting points at Northampton. We look back on that defeat against the Cobblers while previewing the upcoming busy Christmas period, including games against Bradford and Crewe. Yeah, there you go. Fourth defeat of the season, lads.
Forget that. We missed a trick.
Go
if
on.
it being Christmas and all three of us on, we should have dropped the music out and all sang a line each before all coming in on chorus. Looking good, we're Carlisle United.
And, my throat's struggling enough as it is, as anyone listening to last week's episode will know. And obviously, you were struggling a bit then as well. I just thought Mike's probably not feeling that great either. I don't think anyone needs to hear us singing, not whatever time of year. But there you go, lads. It's good to have all three of us on for once, isn't it? We thought because it's Christmas, get us all together for this big bumper preview episode.
Three wise men.
Please force the eggnog to us.
Steady. I mean, I was trying to find a sound effect for our log fire before, so I could play that in the background while we were recording. But unfortunately, I couldn't find one, so you'll have to do without. Yeah, guys, how's it going? Yeah, we a little bit downhearted by the result the other night, or is it kind of a case of first game in a while, that kind of thing?
I think it was obvious there was a bit of, you could tell hadn't played for a while, but at the same time a silly period. I think we should have had a second. Replays looked onside, but we'll discuss all that shortly.
Yeah, we definitely will, won't we?
Yeah, I think, obviously we'll talk about it more in a bit, but we've lost 4 games now, but on paper they're not the worst defeats that you could suffer during a season.
Yes, but I mean we'll come to it in a bit. But there's a feeling of, are we beating the top teams, and can you really have a successful season if you don't do that? That's a big question that's sort of hanging over us a little bit at the moment, I suppose. But there you go. Right, well let's get right into it. First up, of course, we've got the usual stuff in terms of sponsors and where you can find us on social media and how to subscribe to the podcast.
We're very proud to say that once again this season the podcast has been sponsored by the Carlisle United Sports Club London branch. The London branch is open to all Carlisle United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston, Singapore, and of course every part of London and the South East. They regularly meet up on away trips as well as arranging many social events, sports games and fundraising for the club. They'll be providing us with information for the away games as part of the preview section this season too. You can find out more about the London branch at their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. Just a reminder also, if you don't already, please do subscribe to the podcast. You can do that on any good podcast app, wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, any good podcast app. If you just search for the Brunton Bugle, click subscribe, and then every time a new episode comes out, you will get it straight into your inbox. And if you don't already, please do follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, at Brunton Bugle. Same address on Instagram, at Brunton Bugle. If you search for the Brunton Bugle on Facebook and click like, you can follow us there. And we're also on the Be Just On Fear Not Facebook group, which is a fantastic community. Over 3,000 people in there. Would recommend joining it, definitely. We're on the Cumbrians.net message board, and you can find us on email, bruntonbugle@gmail.com. Right, we're going to get straight into it this week, though. No news. I don't think there is, that Dan. I don't think we've missed anything. You're usually quite good at spotting stuff.
Off the top of my head, no, nothing really. Just one little mention. Jim Mitchell, formerly of Kiosk, passed away. Not long after Barry Carter, who was involved with the disabled. So bit of a big loss to the Blues fan base with those two passing. Obviously, our thoughts are with the relevant families, etc.
Absolutely. Well remember that one, Dan. So yeah, in terms of news, sadly that's the only bit of news we've got to bring you this week. Loan watch wise, we don't think any of the loanees played. I think all their games were hit by the weather again. So once again, we'll catch up with that one over Christmas. I mean, what we'll have to do in the new year when we do the episode after all the Christmas games have happened is how we're going to review these. I have no idea, because it's going to be a higgledy-piggledy mix of games that players have played. Actually, funny enough, while we're on the loan watch, Dan, you spotted something that Paul Simpson actually mentioned, didn't he, in one of his recent interviews about Sam Fishburne?
Yeah, he mentioned he's on loan for the season. I don't recall that being mentioned
I
previously.
thought it was only a few months originally. Though.
Yeah,
I thought it was a few months, yeah.
So I wonder if I know when they go to that sort of level that we can essentially still use them in reserve games and that sort of thing. So,
yeah.
No,
certainly. Good luck to Sam. I think it's a good move actually to go for the whole season there rather than just be there for a.
Yeah, I mean he'll still train through here a couple of times a week.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they don't train enough, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Right, well, let's get on to it then. The match review time. Northampton 2, Carlisle United 1. What a mad 5 minutes that was. It just all came crashing down. It was looking so tight at half time, and to take that lead not long after the break as well, you think, yes, this is a really good opportunity to get a big result at a team, but put us 3 points away from third place, it should be said. And then defensively just went absolutely to bits, didn't we? It's a weird one, Mike, isn't it? Because we sort of said this, haven't we? That when it was rearranged for a few days after, we were sort of like, in one sense, good. You're getting a game in because we haven't played for so long, and it gets a bit of momentum at the very least. But in another sense, would it have been better to maybe wait until the new year to play this game?
I think it was the right decision to have it on the Tuesday. I think going another full week without a game pretty much would have been even worse for us. Northampton were a little bit rusty as well, by all accounts. And they came out on top. But yeah, I think it was the right decision to play the game last night. Anyway.
I mean, when you look at that, Dan, do you think it's a case of playing this game actually might benefit us in the long term in terms of going into these Christmas games? Because obviously we're going to come up and talk about the Bradford and Crewe and Doncaster games shortly. But both Bradford and Crewe, they haven't played since the start of December. So it's good. Probably there's an argument, is that going to give us a little bit of an advantage against them? Possibly.
Minutes in the legs, a proper game instead of training games, etc. There is that argument. I can see why both teams wanted to play on yesterday. We're recording Wednesday for those listening. I can see why. It's it gets it out the way. Nobody wants too many games runs of Saturday, Tuesday. Yeah. But it was just, you could tell they hadn't played for a while. I mean, if we hadn't played, Boxing Day would have been about 23 days without a game, I think it would have been.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
Which is a hell of a long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You look back to the 1920 season, COVID, and 2021. Those sort of things were what knackered us eventually, weren't they?
Yeah, exactly. That long period without playing games, which really, really killed that season both those times. Simo had hinted in the build-up to the game, hadn't he, Dan, that there was a potential injury issue in the squad. He didn't want to say who. He does that occasionally, doesn't he? He sort of says there's an issue in the squad, we'll wait and see what happens with it. And it turns out the issue was John Mellish. He missed out due to a knee injury, and as a result was replaced by Corey Whelan on the left side of the back three. Telly Charles did also come in for Jordan Gibson, and good to see Joel Senior as well making his first appearance on the bench since February. I mean, I suppose that's one of the big positives to take from the game that we'll talk about in a minute, Dan. But losing out Mellish, it's becoming quite obvious how important he is to this team, isn't it? And I make no apologies for keeping on saying this. Whether you think he's a good player or not in this squad, he's essential to the way we play, isn't he?
Yeah. It also highlights the need for cover come January in that position, because we had Duncan Idahan on loan. I don't think he was quite at the level, no disrespect to him. With Idahan gone back, Dickinson out for the season, we've basically got Armour and Mellish who play left-sided.
Yeah.
We've seen Whelan come in and play there a couple of times. I think it's fair to say he's not a left-sided defender.
No.
He just looks so natural there. I mean, he's the classic sort of utility player, but right side only plays.
Yeah, I think that's an acceptable way of looking at it right now, Mike. I mean, what were your thoughts when you saw John Mellish not in the lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it yourself on Twitter. I think if he's not playing, I'd rather go 4 at the back. I think the 3 at the back he is pivotal in that. And if he's not there, I'd rather just go with a flat back four.
Yeah, it might be better for safety first next time, possibly, to do that. Let's talk about the goals then. Jack Armour finally got off the score sheet. Dan, you've been predicting for a while. You didn't predict him for this one though, did you? I don't think.
No.
No, but you've been calling him.
I think I said in one of our chats on WhatsApp, it was good to see him get a goal because it's probably the one thing he's deserved up and down that left side all season.
Yeah.
So, no, proper... He did score in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
But was that a cup game?
No, it was the Barrow, wasn't it? It was the 2-2
draw.
Oh,
yeah, it was Barrow, wasn't it? Yeah.
He scored a 2-2 draw.
It's a
Barrow.
header at the corner, wasn't it?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly that.
But no, it was good to get one, and hopefully it leads to a couple more because there's been 2 or 3 times where he's just hit it wide or not quite caught it cleanly, and it'll give him a good boost.
But it was a good finish, and actually it was one of the few genuine sort of good moves we did all game, wasn't it, Mike? In that Charters and Armour linked quite well down the left. Armour, the latter, he put the ball into the box, and actually on the commentary, James Phillips suggests that it was a miss kick from Dennis. I don't think it's a miss kick at all. He's just trying to clip the ball into the far corner, and the defender's got a great block in. It comes out initially to Charters, who says he sees his shot blocked, and then Moxon also see his shot block, and it loops up. And Ellis is onside. If you watch back at the clips, it's hard to tell because he's out of shot, but you can tell just from where he picks up the ball and where the other defender was when the shot came in. He's onside, and he completely scuffs his sort of cross shot across the goal. I think Dennis gets a slight touch, and then
I think Dennis gets something on it. Yeah,
it's a lovely finish from Armour, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what Simo's been on at him to do, hasn't he? To get them runs in at the far post, and like Dan says before, hopefully it'll just give him that little boost, and it wouldn't surprise me if he sort of goes on something of a run. I'm not going to say he's going to score 3-4 games in a row, but he might just get a few more now and really kick on.
He didn't really lash at it, did he, Danny? He just took his time, picked his spot, and beat the keeper, didn't he? And it would be easy to get all caught up in all the Northampton players trying to claim an offside there, but he just got on with it, didn't he, and put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, I was just looking as well. Last night was his 101st game for us. Which is some going. I think he turns 22 towards the end of the season.
April or something like that, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, so by the end of the season, 25 games roughly, which at that age it's a lot more than these lads from academies, isn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely, and touch wood, we've sort of talked about him being kind of ever present this season. But in general, he hasn't picked up a lot of injuries in his time with us, which is kind of a key asset to have in a player in itself that you don't always think of.
No. I think it's probably a blessing as well because we've got no one else to play there.
Yeah. Well, we should be very, very thankful that he keeps himself fit, shouldn't we? They always say once you score that you're at your most vulnerable, aren't you? And that very much was the case in this game. The equaliser. Now, people might think I'm being a bit picky, picking on Whelan a bit here, but look, we all agree he's a good player. He just doesn't work on the left. And a perfect example of this is when he ball down the right, and he dived in to try and intercept, and he didn't need to, did he? And because he's going on his weaker foot as well, he was always at risk of not getting to it. The lad gets away, and Huntington blocks it, goes out for a corner. And from the resulting corner, it's a weird goal, this one, Dan, isn't it? Because it's a lofted cornering, because they'd learned their lesson in the first half, and that they were trying to put balls into the 6-yard box, and Holy was just claiming every single ball. What they did is they sort of lofted it a bit further out with an outswinger. Shering wins the header, and I think Aparere, he goes for it first and doesn't get to it. Another lad goes for it near the line, and Holy can't really go for the ball, can he, in case one of the players touches it? So Whelan doesn't manage to get interception, and I think Simo's made a point, hasn't he, that someone should have been getting back onto the post to defend it, didn't he? And as a result, it just looks a really soft goal, doesn't it, Dan?
When I was watching it, it was almost like it was in slow motion.
Yeah.
It was like everyone just sort of stopped and went, oh. And the ball just continued moving, and everyone went, oh, shit. And next thing it's in the bottom corner. It was strange. strange goal to watch. I've watched it back on the highlights 2 or 3 times, and I still can't work out what they're all doing.
It's kind of like like I said, I think Holy thinks someone's getting a touch and he's got to be ready to make a save here. It's one of those horrible ones for a goal, isn't it? No, because no one gets a touch, it goes in. It looks very soft, but it's just a frustrating one to concede. But I think that the winning goal is even more frustrating, though, isn't it? Because it's just we had a warning sign, didn't we, just before this, Mike? In the lads. Apologies if I'm pronouncing this right. I'm not sure. It's Apire, is it? I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's a French name, isn't it? He's Scottish lad, Louis Apire, I think it is. And just before that, he'd got away down the right again, and Feeney and Huntington weren't particularly great in terms of their cover. Ellis had to actually come across and try and stop the lad from scoring. And he blazed it over the bar. Directly from that goal kick. Because I didn't realise till I watched it back. I was like, oh my God, it actually literally was from the goal kick after that. Long ball forward, and they head it back. Feeney nods it down perfectly fine to Huntington. And he just, I don't know what he's trying to do. He leans back and gets absolutely nothing on his back pass. Appearing nicks in, he's through on goal, and he was always going to score as soon as he did that, wasn't he?
Yeah, although at the same time, I mean, Feeney's header, so the ball's coming and Feeney sort of back pedals and then headers it. But I was always taught as a defender, never let the ball bounce. So I kind of feel like Feeney should have got forward and attacked the ball before it bounced. But yeah, I mean, blame Feeney, blame Huntington, blame whoever. It's another terrible goal to concede.
It's a weird one because Simo didn't really go in on him after the game, and I'd argue that if you're going to go in on Holy for the goal at Walsall, which was Holy's fault, I don't think anyone denies that, and he made a mistake and misjudgment there. A player of Huntington's experience there, trying to play a back pass like that when an attacker's that close to you, you'd expect a bit better from him, wouldn't you, Dan?
I think the difference is with a keeper, it can lay on their mind more. And I think the Hawley thing was just to give him a G up.
Yeah.
Whereas Huntington has played, he's more senior, obviously 5 or 6 years older.
Yeah.
And I also, I'm going back to one of our chats with him, I mentioned, I sometimes wonder if the little odd mistake Huntington makes is connected to the fact he played so little football last season.
Yeah.
I know he played reserve all season, but it's not the same. It's not the same. And I just wondered if even now, you got to remember he didn't join us till late.
No, it's true.
He's still possibly catching up over the last 18 months, and I just think occasionally it'll let him down.
That's probably a fair assessment, to be fair, Dan. Maybe I'm being a little bit harsh in there. I just, to be honest, he knows he's cocked up there, doesn't he? At the end of the day, he's not daft. He knows that
he'll have held his hand up in the dressing room. He's
yeah. That's the key thing with that one, isn't it? And yeah, there was a bit of a rally from us, I suppose. The subs came on and made a bit of an impact, and we had a few chances. I mean, to be fair, Holy's actually not had that much to do in this game, has he? When you look back at it, I would say. I mean, he's not had a massive amount of saves to make, whereas up the other end, there was one chance where Moxon sort of hooked the ball back into the box, and James on the radio said that Feeney should have done better. I think Feeney did as much as he could to try and get on it. To be honest, it was a stretch to get anywhere near it. The goal that was disallowed. Do we want to cover that one now? I mean, for me, I've watched it back. I've looked at the video. It looks like Huntington's clearly onside to me when he nods the ball down.
Paul Simpson said the same in his post-match, and
they will have a wider angle to look at for the analytics.
Yeah. He said he spoke to the referee and said, "Look, I know you get marked on key match incidents, I think they call it."
Yeah,
and he said, "Look, as far as I'm concerned, he's on. You've made a mistake." And he's even said to the referee and his team, I'm not suggesting we would have got a draw because of that goal, because I haven't got a crystal ball. Anything could happen. If it had went to 2-2, anything could have happened afterwards. But, he said, I think you've made a mistake. And he thinks the crowd played the part because the first goal was onside,
Yeah.
and the crowd have told the linesman it wasn't, and he thinks that's played a part.
Yeah, they don't want to make, because after that first goal, they might be in the back of the mind thinking, did we mess up? Was that offside?
Yeah.
And the last thing they want to do then is give 2 offside goals in one game,
Yeah, you don't want to give 2 borderline ones, do you? That's the big issue there, I think. Yeah, but bar that, I think Devitt had a bit of a. I've called it a tame header, but it wasn't really tame, in the sense that he didn't do well with it. He did as much as he could because the ball was spinning up from a Gibson cross, and that was it really. But I don't know. I came away from watching this on the iFollow, and I've seen a couple of people saying I was a bit harsh. I thought it was a poor performance, even allowing for the fact that we showed a bit of fight towards the end and we kept it fairly tight first half. I thought we were so sloppy with the ball. There's a few players in that team at the moment who just don't seem capable to keep a hold of it. And you don't want to name names too much, but I mean, Callum Guy gave the ball away in dangerous situations 2 or 3 times. Owen Moxon also lost the ball quite a few times in good areas. Taylor Charters didn't probably get on the ball as much, although when he did, to be fair, he did create a bit in terms of his part in the goal. But I don't know.
This is something we're probably going to cover more when we have the free weekend in January, when we'll sort of do a bit of a review and hopes for the rest of the season. I think the signing of an experienced midfielder is vital to our squad. That's not to diss Guy and Moxon in any way. I just think
they might need a rest as much as anything, because
I'm not going to say they're comfortable, but they're basically picked every week if they're fit.
Yeah,
and I just think a little bit of competition would be helpful.
The problem there is you've got someone like Jamie Devitt who could do that, but he's not going to be fit enough to play every single week, is he? That's the challenge there. So you've got to work out how you use him best.
But signing like a late 20s, 250 appearance midfield is not going to be cheap in January, is it?
Not going to be easy, certainly not.
No, certainly not.
I'm sure they'll be looking around, won't they?
We'll cover that sort of thing more in early January.
Yeah, definitely. Right, well, we've actually got a 6-second review for the first time in quite a while, actually. I can't remember the last time we had one of these, actually. It's been a bit. We were lucky enough that Martin Howarth, who's a regular as far as he lives down that way, he was at the game. He sent me in a 6-second review. I think it's more a 2-minute review, but I'm going to let him off.
That'll make up for the others.
For the fact that we haven't got any others this week and we haven't had one for a while. So this is Martin's review of the game.
Hi all, this is my first ever 60-second review the day after the game at Northampton. I thought the first half was really sloppy, low on quality from both teams, a lot of passes going astray, underneath players' feet and out for a throw-in, that kind of thing. But the second half soon came alive. Good to see Jack Armour get a goal and celebrate in front of the fans. But yeah, straight away we've switched off, and a really soft equaliser to give away from that corner. A couple of minutes later, mistake from Huntington, and suddenly we're 2-1 down. I think it was 6 minutes after taking the lead, we've switched off completely, and we find ourselves 2-1 down. 2 avoidable goals as well. They should have probably scored in between that. Apiri's got away from Ellis in the box and blazed high and wide when he could have probably just slotted it into the bottom corner. So it's 6 minutes, which has really cost us. But we did come alive again after that. Plenty of intent. I thought Shaw Silver was bright when he came on. The real sour note from the evening is obviously the injury to Edmondson, which I thought could have been avoided. I don't know why the Northampton player backed into Edmondson as Edmondson's jumped off the floor. That ball was just floating out of play, but he's flipped him and he's come down and dislocated his shoulder. And that's really disappointing for Edmondson, who I thought has been quite bright when he's got a good run of games, and now he's looking for another spell on the sidelines. It's frustrating because Northampton are a good team, and I thought if we were just a bit sharper, we could have got something out of that last night. A lot of teams will go there and get turned over. They're always either League One or fighting to get back into League One. And ourselves, we got turned over there last year quite easily. So we've come a long way, and I just thought if we were a bit sharper last night, we probably should have got something out of that. But we're 7th in the league, we're in the playoffs. This time 10 months ago, we were in the relegation zone, so we have come a long way. We've got used to higher standards. And yeah, it was a nice, easy 10-minute drive home for me, so not all bad. Up the Blues.
Well, the 10-minute drive's the important part there, isn't it, really, I think? Because me and Mike have done that one before, and it's not a 10-minute drive back to Liverpool, I can tell you that much, at least. Anyway.
No, especially, because the M6 toll goes cheap after a certain time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so we spent probably about 20 quid on snacks at the services and killed a bit of time to save like £1 on the M6 toll.
Absolutely stupid that was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty fair assessment there, Dan, I think, from Martin.
Yeah,
interest-
he's just brought up one bit that we haven't mentioned. That was
No.
the Edmondson injury. And this lad's getting no luck this season, is he?
He's been looking so good as well in the last few games. And actually, in this game, I thought first half he was one of the few bright sparks. I thought when we got the ball to him, he had that right back on toast. He couldn't cope with him because he showed that he has got a bit of pace about him, doesn't he, in this game? And yeah, the injury, it's interesting because mine actually sent me a little bit more afterwards, basically. I'll just kind of quickly dig it out in terms of talking about the injury. Said refs need to stamp down on players intentionally backing into players once they've jumped. It's intentional. It's not going for the ball and it's dangerous. Edmondson has been badly hurt because of it. Hurricane does it all the time. Worse yet is the offending players normally tricking the ref into getting a free kick themselves. Arguably more dangerous than accidentally leading with the elbow, and that's a straight red. So I think that's a pretty fair assessment of it. The fact that he didn't even get a booking for it is what annoys me. Because we've now probably lost Edmonton potentially for 5 to 6 weeks, possibly, haven't we?
You're probably looking end of January, aren't you?
Yeah, depending on how bad it is and whether he needs an operation or anything like that. But we've seen, look at Scott Simons. It happened to him, and he's been out for pretty much the first 3 or 4 months of the season. So if potentially you could have an issue here where he might not be back till March. And in which case, you think, when's our luck going to end? The bad luck going to end? It's when I saw it in real time, I thought, that's a bit naughty, that. There's no need to be doing that, especially with the ball going out. But refs don't seem to stamp down how much, do they, Mike?
No, exactly. And by all accounts, the ref, all in all, didn't have a great game last night. And I don't like to go on about refs too much, and I'm sure I say that every week and then go on about refs. But the standard this season just seems to be worse than any other season.
There was a period at the end of the first half where he was in danger of losing control, wasn't there?
Yeah, he was just...
He dished a couple of yellows out, and he just, for a couple of minutes, you were like, what is he doing here?
I mean, I will pick up on Corey Whelan got a yellow for time wasting in the first half, and fair play. I actually applaud the ref on this one because I've heard a few people saying, "Oh, it was ridiculous." I don't know what Whelan was doing. There's claims that he was saying that the linesman was in his way, so he couldn't take the frame, but he wasn't really gesturing that way. He was just standing there waiting, and he just didn't get on with it. Just take the throw in, and especially when you're a centre back playing slightly out of position on left side of centre back, to get yourself a booking and put yourself in danger of a second one. Really, really wound me up a bit. That it winds me up every time a player gets booked for something stupid like that. But there you go. But then he did also, to be fair, he did also book the Northampton keeper for refusing to go and fetch the ball. To take.
It was a strange one, that wasn't it? There was no ball boys and no balls anywhere.
Yeah, and he just wouldn't go and get it.
Yeah,
just go and fetch it. It's just brain dead.
We had a throw in, and they were like, well, I think it was 95th minute. There was just their crowd kept the ball. Referee signals for a ball, and no ball appeared for about 20 seconds, and you're like, taking the piss a bit here, lads.
Yeah, it was mad, wasn't it? But there you go. Some talking points. Other than that, I think we sort of agree it's a little bit of a leggy performance. I think both managers, I listened to both their post-match interviews, and they both said the same thing. Said, look, the problem is we've not had a game for 17 days, both teams. And John Brady, the Northampton manager, similar to Simo, said that we've been struggling to find training grounds during that period as well because we haven't been able to get on AstroTurfs and things like that even. And it looked that way, doesn't it? And I think Simo, actually, to be fair, probably summed it perfectly and said the team that made the least mistakes was going to win that game. And as it was, we made more mistakes than Northampton and got punished for it. So kind of inevitable, isn't it, really, I suppose, when that happens. Looking at some positives, the 4 subs, I think all 4 of them did quite well, didn't they? Dan, would you say?
Yeah, not too bad. Toby looked bright when he came on. Jamie Devitt, we all know what Jamie Devitt can do. Who else came on?
Gibson and Stratton.
Yeah, Gibson was running about, but you know what you're getting with Stratton, so...
Yeah,
and certainly pushed their case to be involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Toby's in his role. Someone messaged me about this, and they were saying, and I just kind of agree with them on it. I'd back Toby in those tight situations. You know, he obviously scored the goals disallowed. In tight situations like that, you kind of back him to score, don't you, most of the time? He's quite cool about it. There's no real sort of panic about the way he sort of finishes it. He seems to have this little bit of belief, I'm gonna dig it out one way or another. So it was nice to see him looking a bit sharp, though, because actually, after that game against Tranmere in the Cup, the 2 or 3 appearances he made after that, he didn't really look up to speed, did he? He was struggling a bit, so it was nice to see him actually looking like he was back at the level that we know he's capable of, and he's going to have to be honest, because as it stands, we've only got 3 strikers available, haven't we, until January? That's Dennis, Stretton, and Toby. So all 3 of them are going to be fighting for a place, I suppose, over those few games.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to pick? I mean, I think we've covered most of this, to be honest. I'll talk about the fact that Mellish is a big miss. Edmo injury. Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered it. I don't think there's any point in going over any more ground, really. I suppose we've covered the fact that it's just a bit of a disappointment and a bit of a missed opportunity, I suppose. But
I mean, Northampton are a good team. Let's not forget that, and let's not gloss over that. And you know, like I sort of touched on before, we've lost 4 games. One of them's Northampton away. One of them's against top of the league at home. One of them's Stockport away. You know, the other's Stevenage, who are second away. They're not terrible
top
games.
3.
Yeah. You could argue with that, but there's the fine margins in them games as well, and there's if we'd done this or if we hadn't done that. You know, it's not like we've been absolutely outclassed and battered, per se.
Is there a question of the fact that we haven't beaten any of the top 6, though? That's, I suppose, the question. I know they have been tight games, but...
Well, we've still got to play them all again, you know.
True.
So there's an opportunity to right that.
We haven't played Barrow yet, have we?
No, true. I'm being a little bit facetious there, but top 5, I mean, we drew against Swindon, we drew against Mansfield. 2 games you could probably argue we should have won, actually, to be fair.
A draw at Mansfield's always a half-decent result too.
Yeah.
I think looking at the table, Orient are on 51 points already after 21 games.
Which is mad.
16 points ahead of Swindon in 4th with a game less. Orient, barring the collapse of all collapses, are going up.
Yeah.
Stevenage and Northampton both deserve to be 2nd and 3rd.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're talking a 7-point gap. And then I'm just looking at the table here. 5 points covers 4th to 12th. So, you know, it's one of those. In the coming weeks, you'll win one, you'll jump 3 or 4 places. You lose one, you'll probably slip 2 or 3. You know,
The thing I've noticed, I'm just looking here, the sort of recent forms of teams. Actually, of the other teams in the playoffs, we've probably got the best form overall. If you take away that defeat against Northampton, we hadn't lost in the previous 5. Whereas Barrow have lost 3. In fact, Barrow have lost 3, Mansfield lost 3, and Swindon lost 2 in that time. So, yeah, it's very, very tight in that playoff fight, isn't it? And the next game coming up that we're going to be talking about in a minute, the Bradford game, does look quite a big game now, doesn't it? Especially as Bradford actually have got a game in hand on us now, thanks to that playing that game against Northampton, obviously, because their game wasn't played at the weekend. I think that covers it then, lads, doesn't it? I think for that bit for now.
Yeah.
Right, we'll move on and take a short break, and then we'll be back to preview the Christmas games.
Hi, I'm Owen Moxon, and you're listening to the Brunton Bugle.
There we go. Owen Moxon taking us into the second half of the show where we'll be previewing the Bradford City, Crewe and Doncaster games. We basically looked at it and we thought the chances of us getting to record between Christmas and New Year, the state that all 3 of us will be in, although Mike will be working for a lot of it, I know that.
Yeah.
There wasn't much chance of us fitting a recording in, so we're going to basically preview these 3 now. We'll review them all in one go, probably after the New Year as well, and then we've got a couple of special ones coming in the New Year. We'll fit a few bits in terms of doing a sort of half-season review. I think you suggested there, Dan, wasn't it? I think we're going to look at doing potentially.
Yeah, I was going to say we could probably review the Christmas and New Year games and then do sort of a review of the first half, preview the second half.
Yeah. That definitely sounds like a good idea. Because we've got 3 games to look at, we haven't got any behind enemy line section for this podcast, unfortunately. So we're going to get straight into it. And let's talk about the Bradford game first up, Boxing Day. I love Boxing Day games. Do you, Dan? There's something about them, isn't it?
Oh, yes, yeah.
It's one of the games I really do actually look forward to in the calendar. I mean, for one, you're going back home for Christmas, seeing your family if you live away from Cumbria, that is obviously. But we've had some belting games down the years on Boxing Day, or nearby to Boxing Day, haven't we? I mean,
yeah, it's usually a big crowd. Everyone's, a bit of Christmas spirit and a couple of pints before, etc. It's, good.
When you look back, can you think of what your favourite Boxing Day game ever is, or favourite Christmas period game as well, maybe?
Well, you can't beat 94, 95.
Yeah, they're in two games in the space of 2 days. 2 days, players don't know they're born, do they?
I know.
But what was it, Hartlepool? What was the Hartlepool score on Boxing Day?
I think it was 5-1 off the top of my head.
And then what was the score the day after, on the 27th against Bury? 3-0.
It was 3-0.
I mean, an 8-1 aggregate over 2 days.
When the 12,000 crowd was really about 15 plus.
It was ridiculous, wasn't it? But there you go. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, obviously they're the obvious ones to look back, aren't they? Mike, have you got any particular favourites you can think of, Christmas game-wise?
We had that one, was it? I think it was the year that we went down. Was that a home one? I can't even remember, but I seem to remember we were doing absolutely crap at the time, and it was either New Year's or Boxing Day, and we had a home game. We've got a massive crowd for it.
You're struggling to remember it now.
Yeah, I think it would be Hartlepool or Darlow or someone. I think
I know which one
was a good one.
Go on,
Oldham 6-0.
It was good for many reasons, particularly for John Sheridan, who clearly was still didn't get what he wanted for Christmas, clearly, because he was fuming, wasn't he, after that 6-0 win? But I mean, that was a bizarre one. I remember
he didn't last much longer after that, did he? So.
No, he was clearly on his way out at that point, wasn't he? So there you go. So it's Bradford on Boxing Day. Interesting one to judge this one, isn't it, Dan? Because Bradford have, I don't know, because they were second favourites going into this season, but I always felt they were a little bit overhyped in that sense. And actually, I always felt more realistic for them was to be challenging for a playoff place, because Hughes had a bit of a rebuild on his hands. And actually, I think they're doing okay this season. I don't know what you think.
They're getting there slowly. They've picked up a bit. I think they started quite poorly from memory, didn't they?
Had a few dodgy results.
They're into 8th. I mean, they actually, I'm just looking through the fixtures. They didn't start too bad. They had a good solid September. And October, they drew a lot of games. They got into a draw, and they've actually lost the last 3. One of them was Pizza Trophy, so we don't really care about that. But Leighton Orient and Northampton both hammered them in the last 2 league games.
Well, that does say something. I suppose that's go back to your point then, Mike, actually, that they've played 2 teams near the top and been hammered. We've played those 2 teams. We've narrowly lost in both games, and one of them with the referee was just an absolute clown, wasn't he? And
exactly.
Ruined the game. So actually, that's maybe, is that a positive to take into it, Mike?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think Bradford are a bit like Salford in a way, in that sort of you look at the team on paper before a season and you think they're going to go up. But then, like, this year, very much like Salford for me, I was like, do you know what? I keep fancying them every year and they don't quite do it. And I don't know what it is. I think maybe inconsistent is the word for them this season. Because they've... Yeah, you never know which Bradford City is going to turn up, to be honest.
What did you make of their transfer activity in the summer, Dan? Were you particularly impressed with some of the signings they made? I mean, they already had a very good striker in Andy Cook. We all knew that. But in terms of the other players they brought in, it wasn't quite the same. I mean, the one that stands out is Richie Smallwood, isn't it? Obviously, that's the one you straight away look at, isn't it? That you think he's a good signing.
Yeah, Smallwood. A couple I took notice of was Walker from Hearts and Banks from Crystal Palace. There's a lot thought of Scott Banks, but I don't think he's quite done it just yet. But no, they had a massive turnover, didn't they? And I think they released and got rid of about a dozen, and then probably 15 or more came in. So that's probably why it took him a little time to settle, because such a big turnover,
Yeah. Any that stand out for you, Mike?
Well, obviously Harry Chapman, who according to some sources on Twitter had 100% signed for us, and then obviously hadn't. Odesina from Hartlepool. He was a massive loss for Hartlepool. And Vadaine Oliver, who was obviously linked with us under Curl.
Every season, pretty much.
Every season.
Yeah, but he's always he's always been sort of a big man that can cause teams problems, and I think teams like Bradford haven't always gone down that route of sort of plan B, sort of big striker. They've often been more plan A, let's dominate teams, and if that doesn't work, well, we're a bit snookered kind of thing.
He's a useful big nuisance at this level, basically, Oliver, isn't he? That's the kind of player he is. I mean, looking at the squad overall, I'm just having a look for it. I mean, I mentioned already, Andy Cook's the obvious one that stands out. You think he's a good striker. You know, he's gonna guarantee you 15 goals this season at the very least, isn't he? If he stays fit, and that's the issue with him staying fit as much as anything. Defensively, it doesn't really stand out to me, mate. I mean, Brad Halliday's a decent player at this level, but I'm not that sold on it. In midfield, they've got a couple of decent... I mean, Alex Gilead's an obvious one in midfield in terms of we know about him, don't we? He's ex-Blue. But, yeah, I feel like they've got a bit of quality in attack. But I look at defence in midfield, Dan, and I'm not that sold on them, really.
Yeah, they haven't got that many defenders when you look at the squad, really, have they?
I don't know if that's the way that transfer markets list them, because I take
possibly.
the deals from there. But, you're right, it doesn't look like they've got a huge amount there.
There's nobody really, really stands out. Obviously, the one that'll be familiar is Matty Platt, because he was at Barrow for a bit.
Yeah.
And like Mike said, Odesina. But it's a bit meh, isn't it? It's a bit meh.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you compare it with some other teams, like even your Orient and your Stockport and people like that. Yeah, I'm not as sold on them really in terms of that.
And they've got 10 forwards listed, which is...
I think some of them are wingers.
Yeah, some of them are like wide forwards, admittedly.
Because actually, Alex Gilead was listed as a forward as well. I put him into the midfield once. He's a midfielder these days.
Yeah.
It's a weird one of him in there. But yeah, so it's yeah, it's going to be a tough game. Don't doubt that. But I'm just not... I'm not sold on Bradford this season, to be honest, but I still think they'll be up there and thereabouts for the playoffs. I don't think they'll be a go for automatic now. And that's way out of reach for most teams now, to be honest. But yeah, Andy Cook, let's talk about him. Obviously, he never did anything really with us, unfortunately. It just didn't quite work out for him. He's worked his way back up and built a decent career together. He's 32 now, isn't he, I think? You kind of forget how old he is, really, because it doesn't seem that long ago he was on our books. But I'm going to put an absolute mockers on it here now and probably ruin this, but never scored against us.
No. Heads off to Bet365.
Yeah, you can thank me for that. 4 appearances against us and he hasn't scored. And to be honest, he's not looked that great when he's played against us. But I think he's been a bit unlucky.
Last season.
I know, I think a couple of times he's got injured, actually, when I think back, or he's come on later on as subs. So I'm sure he'll be wanting to impress at some point, especially Greg Abbott will be there potentially in the crowd, possibly as our head of recruitment, as the guy who let him go, obviously. But I think he does. It's interesting because I was speaking to Greg when I was down at the ground doing the interviews a while back, and Greg said he bumped into him when he was down at Bradford, and Cookie said to him, to his teammates, best manager I ever worked under him, because he probably worked me and he really helped develop me as a player. He said I wasn't ready to be in a professional football club at that point, but he really, really helped me. So he clearly appreciates that. But there you go. I'll quickly rattle through all the terms of the stats and stuff like that before the game as well. So the referee's going to be Adam Herzeg. It is first season as an EFL referee. He's taken charge of 17 games so far this season, handing out 49 yellows and 2 red cards. Last season he handed out 56 yellows and no red cards in 15 games. The last United game he took charge of was the 3-3 draw against Rochdale earlier this season. We're starting to get referees now where they've already refereed once this season, aren't we? So you'll start to see a few names repeating. I don't remember any particular controversy from this game. I think Scott Quigley was the only player booked in that game, actually. So, yeah, it's always nice that, isn't it? When you get a referee and you don't think I can't remember if he's stupid he's done.
Yeah, well, there was maybe controversy in that because Dennis's goal that game is almost did it cross the line, didn't it? And I think it did, and he gave us it. So another referee at this level might not have given that. So be thankful that he did.
They sure did. Head-to-head record, it's the 57th meeting between the two sides. United have won 20, 14 have been draws, and 22 wins for the Bantams. Last time out, I think you touched on it before, Dan, they lost 3-0 against Leyton Orient, and they were pretty much battered in this game, weren't they? They didn't put up a huge amount of a fight by all accounts. And yeah, as a result, they find themselves sort of still languishing just outside the playoff places, missed an opportunity, because we obviously drew that day against Sutton, so they could have actually gone ahead of us if they'd actually won it. So a bit of a disappointment for them. They're currently 13th in the last 6 games form table, record of drawn, 1-1, loss. Pretty straightforward. That United are 8th with a record of 1 drawn, 1 drawn, loss. Any other points to pick out this? I mean, Mark Hughes' boss is an interesting one, isn't he? Turns out he actually applied for the job as well, because I thought he might have been one who'd been headhunted or, someone, an agent had suggested, he might be interested, something like that. But apparently he actually put an application in for it. And seemingly he thought, I could either, carry on being a pundit and doing that for the rest of my life. I could have one more go at being a manager and taking a club up the league potentially. And I think, Dan, he deserves a bit of credit, actually. Maybe he doesn't get the credit he deserves for actually putting himself out there and actually going and taking on a job and a challenge like that, doesn't he?
I think people would be surprised at what managers actually apply for jobs. Even when ours has come up, there's been faint mention previously of if you saw every name that applied, you'd be surprised, which suggests that some of these managers just want to manage, and fair play to him for chucking his hat in the ring, and he's got it, and he's doing all right so far. Could improve as the season goes on.
Peter Taylor's an interesting one like that, isn't he? Because I think I saw somewhere the other day he'd taken on his 24th managerial job. I think he's in his 70s now, isn't he, or something like that? And he's done the complete rounds of the non-league circuit in London, especially as well. So fair play to them if they.
Has he signed Stuart Green?
Possibly not. I don't know. But yes, right where are we at now? I don't know if there's anything else to cover in terms of Bradford. I think we've got that one sorted. Yeah. And we're going to do our predictions after each one, I think, so we don't do a massive one at the end. Yeah, go on then. Let's do them first, right? So, in terms of the prediction table, I think we're all still on the same row of points because none of us predicted Jacama to score in this game. So there you go. Dan, do you want to go first?
I'm going to go for a 2-1 win with goals from Christian Dennis and Jordan Gibson against his old team.
Oh, he'll enjoy that. He would enjoy that, definitely. Mike, what are you going for?
I'm going to go for a 2-0 win, and I'm going to go for Morgan Feeney, and I'll go for Callum Guy as well. Callum Guy isn't a ridiculous shout anymore. It used to be, but it's not anymore.
It's long ranges, definitely. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win, and I'm going to go for goals from... I need to think about this. I'm going to go for goals from Toby Show-Silver and Jamie Devitt. Why not? That's my former Bradford player that I've picked for the goals. It's the law, isn't it, when we play against Bradford? We've got that many of them. You've got to pick one of them, so there you go. Right, let's move on to the next game. Crewe Alexandra. So Crewe Alexandra away. This is taking place on Thursday, the 29th of December. We should note, for anyone who is planning to go to this game, it's a 7 p.m. kickoff. Not a 7:45. I'm not sure why it's been picked for this time. But,
do you know the annoying thing? You can't get back on the train still, despite the earlier time.
No, it's really annoying, that, isn't it, really, of all the things. For me, I mean, it doesn't make it much easier for me either, and I don't live up the road as well. So, I'm slightly put off going to this one, even though it's one of my local ones, because it's £25 to get in.
To sit on that side.
Sit on that side as well, with that terrible view, with those seats that are really cramped. I'm a bit.
Yeah.
I'm on the fence about whether I'm actually going to go or not. I'll probably, I'm like I always say, I don't know if I'm going to go, and I end up going. But it really did put me off, especially when you consider the next game, Doncaster, is £15 each, I don't know if that's some sort of offer they've got on Doncaster for that game. I think it might be, but it's kind of a bit, it's Christmas time, for God's sake. Why are Crewe not thinking about the fact that maybe we should reduce tickets for this game?
To be fair, it's the only thing that there is to do in Crewe, so they really cash in and monetize it.
Well, what does the flag say, Mike? What does the flag say?
Born in Crewe, live in Crewe, die in Crewe.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, how depressing.
Yeah, what a cheery place to grow up. Crewe. So obviously they've come down from League One last season, comfortably finished bottom of the table, 24th place. They were appalling. Never ever looked like they were going to stay up from... I think they were pretty much in the relegation zone the whole season, weren't they? That's how bad they were. Cost David Artell his job. He left, and the job was taken over by, and I can't find his name out, Alex Morris took on the job. He was from their academy. I think he'd been assistant to Artell as well for a bit. Morris has now left that job, stepped down to become assistant manager. The assistant manager has moved into the interim role in October, I think it was November, early November. They had an interview process to replace him, and Lee Bell got the job, the assistant. And the Crewe fans are fuming about this because it's something they've always done, isn't it, Dan? They've always looked to promote from within, and sometimes you've got to applaud that. You have to say it's good that, as a coach, if you can build yourself up and gain the experience, you've got an opportunity there. But they've been struggling for quite a while. When does it get to a point with them, do you think, that they have to say, no, we've got to stop promoting coaches from women. We need to get a new voice in there, someone different.
Yeah, it's sort of the Crewe way, isn't it? They've always been sort of, from the Danny O'Grady days back in the 90s and what have you. If you had to ask for a random club to sum up mid-table League Two, Crewe in it for me. They're just Crewe, and that's not a slur. It's just they're just Crewe.
They're not bad enough to go down, but they're nowhere near good enough to go up.
No,
that's the problem with them at the moment. Yeah. They in the summer, the signings they made in the summer. If you look at the players they brought in, they're solid. Connor Thomas was someone who had a promising career, didn't quite work out of injuries, but solid player, comes in from...
I think solid but not exceptional is how I'd sort of describe them.
I mean, we both know what Kelvin Mell and Rod McDonald are like when they're on the game. They're generally solid, and McDonald was probably the best player on the pitch when we played them early this season in the 0-0 draw. He looked like he had a point to prove in that game. And the rest of them, you look, Courtney Baker-Richardson was a bit early on, looked like a real prospect. I think he's out injured, isn't he? I think he's possibly out for quite a while, actually. But beyond that, you look and you think they rely heavily on the youngsters coming through in their academy. Totally understand that. That's their business ethos. That's the way they work. But I think with the way the EPPP is going and stuff like that now these days, it's becoming more of a challenge for clubs like that, isn't it, to keep hold of their players?
Especially where they are, Crewe. I mean, they need a sort of bigger club. You're probably looking at Stoke.
Yeah.
You've got all the Birmingham clubs downwards. You've got the Manchester and Merseyside clubs northwards. Any really good footballer coming through at Crewe is not going to be at Crewe's academy these days.
Yeah. They generally go fairly early, and they don't get as much money for them. It's probably a bit easier for them to keep hold of them than it is for us, because I think they are I don't know if they're a Class 1 still or a Class 2 academy these days, but they are a better class of academy than we've got. They invest a lot more money into it each year because they know they're going to get the money back generally from the player sales. And it sounds like it's getting to the point now where that money's not coming back as quickly. So it would be sad if they ended up having to maybe strip that back a little bit. I hope they don't, but yeah, it kind of feels like they're similar to us in a sense that they're a club that's a bit listless at the moment. They don't really seem to have a long-term plan or ambition, do they? Other than keep the academy going, keep the money coming in from that, and hope for the best almost, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think historically, they're quite a big club. They're almost sort of maybe don't want to say sleeping giant, but they've been sort of a solid championship level club in the past, haven't they? Not too long ago.
They were championship level. Dan might remember than me for probably the best part of a decade at least, I think. Because I can remember we played them in what season would have been when we came down. We played them last season. I think they'd only just come down possibly at that point. I'm just trying to find a list of the crew Alexandra seasons and try and work out how long they were in the championship.
Yeah, I think when we went up circa sort of 05, 06 ish, I think they'd just come down pretty much.
Looking at it here, so they went up to. They had, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons when they first went up to the first division. Got relegated, but came straight back up in second place, promoted. Then they had another 3 seasons at that level, and then they came down in 06, 07 into League One, the season we went up into League One. And since then, they've bobbled between the two divisions. They have a few seasons. They have like 3 seasons in League One, go up down to League Two. 3 seasons at that level, go up to League One. 3 or 4 seasons at that level, down to League Two. 4 seasons at League Two, up to League One for 2 seasons, and then they're back down at League Two level.
It can't be boring, but a crew fan.
No, I'm sure it's exciting, and you know when you see these young players coming through as well, they must feel really proud. But it must get to the point at the moment where they're thinking it's been a bit of it goes up and down. It's been if it doesn't feel like there's that trajectory for them now, is there to go back up to League One at the moment? It doesn't feel like there's a plan in place for that, I feel. Crew fans listening might know better than that. Please tweet us and let us know, your thoughts on it. But in terms of their squad, Dan, overall, again, I said it before, there's not really many standout names there, is there really? And that's not in the sense that they're bad players, it's the fact that there's a lot of young players in there that they probably know how good they are in their academy. It's hard for us to judge how good they are.
Yeah, I'm just looking through the squad here, and there's not that much stands out.
Chris Long has got a bit of experience, hasn't he? I think he's been around for a bit.
The one that actually stands out to me is the keeper from Arsenal, Okonkwo.
Yeah.
I hope I've said that correctly, because I know he's quite well thought of down at Arsenal. Be good experience for him.
Did he play the game at Brunton Park? Because he looked quite good, I think, since November, actually. I think he looked quite a decent keeper, actually.
Yeah.
This season, yeah.
But no, there was a few familiar names sort of left them in the summer. Like Chris Porter and that. And yeah, they just reek of 6 out of 10, don't they?
Yeah. Like I said, they don't look as bad as like a Hartlepool or a Rochdale, something like that. They look like they've got enough to see off teams like that, but they don't have that quality really.
I'll tell you one thing I've noticed looking at the league and that, there's not many goals in their games.
No.
There's a lot of 1-0s, 0-1s, 1-1s, there's not many games where a lot happens.
Not quite as bad as Gillingham, who are the ultimate example of a team that just does nothing these days. But I'm just trying to dig out Corny Baker Richardson here, and I'm looking. He hasn't played since the game against Barrow at the end of October, and he'd got 8 goals in 18 appearances at the start of the season. So that's probably where the problems come in terms of goals.
Help.
Yeah, I can't remember how long he's out for, but having him out for a while, that's going to be a blow. Because I look at the rest of those strikes and I think, where's the goals coming from?
Yeah.
Whereas if us, you look and you think, well, Edmondson and Dennis are definitely going to get goals. Stretton might chip a couple in. Toby, if he gets fit, he can get a few off the bench. So that's the difference you notice, isn't it, really? So yeah, is this the game, do you think we should be really targeting and looking for? This is one we definitely need to get 3 points off over Christmas?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Because, you look at the Bradford game, I'm not saying you'd take a point, but you'd probably be happy if it was a point in the end and you didn't get beat. Whereas this game's surely one where you look and you think you've got to go there and get a win against them, haven't you?
Yeah, for me, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I think overall, if we get through these 3 games still in the playoffs, I think that's a bare minimum. I'd take that. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah. Right, well, I'll go for the usual stats and bits before we do the predictions. Referee for this one is Andy Haynes. It's his 16th season as EFL referee. He's a well-known name, isn't he, I think, at this level.
Yeah.
He's taken charge of 15 games so far this season, handing out 45 yellow cards and 2 red. Last season, he handed out 96 yellows and 1 red in 34 games. The last United game he took charge of was the 2-1 win over AFC Wimbledon earlier this season. Armour and Mellish were both booked for the Blues that day. Head-to-head record, 97th meeting between the two sides. They must be up there as maybe one of the top 4 or 5 teams that we've played.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Hartlepool are top, aren't they? And Rochdale are right up there as well. I know that.
Yeah.
But I don't know how high Oldham and Bury and a few other clubs like that are. But they're right up there, aren't they? The Crew in terms of the amount of times they've played them. 42 wins for United, 15 draws and 39 wins for the Railwaymen. Last time out, similar to the Bantams actually, they last played a game at the start of the month. There was a Friday night game, I think they played on the 2nd of December. But again, it was a defeat. They were beaten 2-1 by Newport at home. Former Alex player and former Blues player, Alfrande Zanzala, grabbed the late winner in that game.
That was his first game back, wasn't it?
It was as well. I bet he enjoyed that. Crew are currently 14th in the last 6 games form table, record of drawn loss, 1-1 loss. They're very consistent at the very least. United, we've mentioned what United are before on that. Don't think there's much else to cover on them, other than the fact, like I said, that their managerial situation, their fans really were. They were talking about it when we spoke to their guy for the game earlier this season. But I remember I sort of checked in and looked on Twitter about it when the managerial change happened, and the feeling was that Bell got the job after the interview process, and they were like, "Look, if you were just going to give him the job based on how he'd done as a caretaker interim, fine, because he got some good results. But don't sort of kid us that you've done an interview process and he's the best candidate that's come out of that. Because you'd think there must be some big managers who would probably have applied for that job. But there you go. Right, predictions for this one then, guys. Mike, you can go first this time.
I'll go for 3-0 for this one. And I'll go for a Dennis brace. And I'll go for Moxon as well.
Okay. Dan, what are you going to go for?
I was going to say 3-0 too, and I'm going to go for Dennis, Armour and Shaw Silver.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go 3-0 as well. I'm going to put Dennis in there because I don't want to get caught out if he scores and you two pull away. Plus,
You're not playing tactical there, are you?
I'm playing tactical, but also I'm remembering the fact that I've got money on him for the top goal scorer in League 2 this season, so I need him to keep scoring. Yes, I'll go for Dennis. Who else? Paul Huntington and who else? Jordan Gibson to get the other one. Right, let's move on to the Donny game then. So this is going to be the game on New Year's Day. I think this is a 3 o'clock kickoff, isn't it? I don't think it's one that has the kickoff move. So 3 p.m. kickoff.
I've not seen anything to suggest otherwise.
No, good. On Sunday the 1st of January, 2023. Got to get used to saying that. Doncaster, Dan, quite an underwhelming side this season, aren't they? And when we played them, I can't remember if you were at the game against Doncaster early in the season, but I mean, I was confident going into that game, but I was so disappointed with them. I thought they were really, really poor, and we looked comfortable against them, didn't we?
Yeah, they started the season really well, really strongly. I think the first 6 games, they were right at the top of the table, and they hit a bit of a bad spell, and they've been a bit topsy-turvy ever since. When we played them, I thought they were very, very poor. Worth remembering, Ryan Edmondson missed a penalty late in that game as well. So it should have been 4-0, you know.
Well, could have been more.
Yeah, I don't know. They seem to get a decent result, then follow it up with a bad one. You know, it must be frustrating watching them this season.
Yeah. Well, obviously, that win against them earlier this season, that cost Gary McSheffrey his job.
Yes.
And I mean, there had been talk of fans wanting him out well before that as well, to be fair. So probably not a massive surprise. Didn't mess around, though. Quite quickly afterwards, they appointed Danny Schofield as his replacement. He's actually a Doncaster lad. He's never played for them before. So he's come in as manager, having been sacked as Huddersfield manager at the start of the season, I think it was. I think he'd taken over there from the lad who left at the end of last season. And yeah, he seems to have done okay. He's kept them sort of in contention with those playoff places, but yeah, they didn't mess about in terms of that appointment, did they really, Dan? It's a bit of a strange one, sort of just going straight in. They clearly had the plan in place, didn't they, to get him?
Yeah, I don't think it's beyond the realm to suggest that he was certainly sounded out if he was interested, if and when an opportunity would arise.
Yeah. In terms of their squad, Mike, in terms of squad overall and players brought in, I mean, Adam Clayton's a name we all know, don't we? We all know what he's capable of. Any of us stand out there in terms of people who've been brought in? I mean, obviously, we probably would have said Lee Tomlin, but he retired, didn't he? Not long after actually signing for them.
He's actually played in non-league, isn't he?
Yeah,
really
I saw
low
that.
down.
Yeah,
I saw it scored at the weekend. I can't remember who it was.
I think basically his knees can't cope anymore, can they? Basically, that's why he's it's better playing at the level for him. So yeah, Mike, what's your thoughts in terms of their squad?
Well, yeah, I mean Kieran Agard up front.
Another one who's been linked with us many times in the past.
Yeah,
He's been around a while, hasn't he?
Yeah. And George Miller is often, quite a nifty little striker. I mean, on paper, they don't look bad. I think it's maybe just League Two's come as a bit of a culture shock to them this year, and maybe coming down last season, morale's a bit low, and just sort of struggled a little bit at the start, and then you sort of chasing yourself a little bit to try and pick points up again.
Any of us stand out for you, Dan? I look at it as well. I mean, Tom Anderson,
Roshan Williams at the back. He was Man United. I think he went to Shrewsbury.
Yeah,
he had 2 or 3 seasons there, and I remember when Donny signed him, I thought that's not a bad signing. It's Tom Anderson. Yeah, who remembers Tom Anderson's loan at Carlisle?
He was quite good. That's funny. It's weird.
He didn't actually play the games for us.
Yeah, compared against some, he actually played a fair few, didn't he? But yeah, I mean, I look at their midfield and there's a bit of quality in there. I mean, Tommy Rowe's a really good player at this level. Luke Molyneux, we know what he'd done previously at the past at Hartlepool. John Taylor as well. Ben Close. I mean, Harrison Biggins scored a brilliant. I think he scored the goal of the month, didn't he, against Grimsby for Doncaster the other week? I think for the League Two goal of the month. There's quality there. It's just weird that they don't seem to be able to get it out of them, do they? I think you're right, Mike. I think it might be a case of almost a culture shock of coming down and not really realising what a challenge you're going to face at this level, almost. Sorry, I should have actually left out the question, shouldn't I? I left that wide open for us there. I do apologise.
I was about to speak, but I was like, have you left that for Mike?
No, I didn't left it open for no one there. Sorry, listeners. I feel like I've got a good feeling about this one. I don't know what it is. New Year's Day, potentially a big following with the cheaper tickets. I mean, we've had some good days out at Doncaster, haven't we, Mike? I think you recalled a few of them recently.
Yeah, one of the best ones. It was a season on Rabbit where we were fighting relegation a bit, and Liam Noble scored a brace, and he was absolutely everywhere that night. And I think one of them took a wild deflection, and the other was from outside the box into the top corner. But yeah, you've never been, have you? I don't think.
No, it'll be a first visit for me. First visit.
I've never made the new ground yet. And it opened in 2007.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Well, the first time we went, we were the first team to win there, weren't we? When Carl Hawley and Jeff Smith both scored absolute worldies.
Well, they were incredible goals, weren't they?
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see what it's like, because I've always felt with the keeper, whenever I've seen it on TV, I've looked and thought, that'd be a tidy... Put some blue seats in there. That'd be a tidy version for us, wouldn't it, probably? Probably about the right size. Is it 15,000, 16,000, is it, I think? I've got the number here. 15,000 capacity. That's the kind of ground we'd want, Dan, you'd think. Maybe a similar size, maybe a few little tweaks here and there to it.
I'm just looking, it's only our 4th visit since it opened, which is pretty good. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's it's a bit out of town. It's a good walk out of town by all accounts. I think was it not part of a slight development?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's like the. I'm sure there's some sort of leisure complex there or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's one of them retail park out of town
And they
jobbies, I think.
share it with the rugby club as well. I seem to remember. I think possibly. Seems to ring a bell.
Yes, Donny Rugby play there. Also, Sheffield Eagles have used it for a couple of years.
Was that when they knocked down the what you call it
Yeah, I think
Don
when
Valley.
work was on it, work was happening. Also, Harrogate Town played there when they first
did,
came in the league.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, interesting one, that one. So yeah, it'll be an interesting trip for all of us, I think. Like I said, first time visit for me and Dan, first time for you, Mike, for a while. It's a weird one because they never seems to fall right when we play against them, but finally got an opportunity to go there.
We'll be called off now and moved to a Tuesday night that you can't go.
With bloody typical. Right, well, I'll go through the stats and stuff now before we do our predictions. Referee for this one, Benjamin Speedy from Merseyside. It's his third season as an EFL referee. This season he's taken charge of 17 games, 17 yellows and 3 red cards in them. Last season handed out 96 yellows and 4 red cards in 33 games. The last United game he took charge of was the 2-0 defeat at Stockport County back in October. I don't recall any particularly controversial decisions in that game, Dan. I think that was...
No, we were just pants, weren't we?
Yeah, exactly. It's fairly straightforward, that one, I think it's fair to say. 67th meeting of the two sides. United have won 25, 17 have been a draw, and Rovers have won 24. Last time out, Doncaster actually one of the few teams actually got a game on the weekend of the 10th of December, and they'll be pleased they did because they beat Newport 1-0 at Newport as well. Kyle Noyle's goal in the second half was enough to grab all 3 points for them. Stats-wise, in terms of form-wise, Rovers are 9th in these last 6 games form table, record of lost 1-1, lost 1. Again, nice and symmetrical that. I'm not sure there's a huge amount else to talk about this one. I mean, you'll have been a few times to the old ground as well, Dan, I guess, to the old Bellevue.
Yeah, I went to Bellevue. Sadly, the scene of our last game as a league club in May 2004. A sad day, but it wasn't much of a ground, the old ground. It was
weird because they had those like executive boxes up behind one of the goals, didn't they? Almost like it was like porter cabins, weren't there? I seem to remember. I remember as well. I didn't go, but I remember people raved about a goal that Roy Delap scored there on the opening day of the season once, I think, as well. Like 30, 40 yards.
Brilliant.
Red hot day as well, that.
It was, that old away end was packed. Everyone had the tops off. It was that warm. And Rory Delap absolutely lashed it in. Look it up on YouTube if you haven't seen it.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
Amazing. Right.
Those were the days.
Do you want to do predictions or want to talk about United and how we think they'll line up and stuff first?
Do the predictions first.
Right, go on then. Predictions-wise, I'll go first on this one then. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win. 3 wins over Christmas, that's what I'm going for.
2-0 Cherry already.
I know, exactly. Well, I'm on the bitty shandy, as I told you beforehand. 2-0. Who am I going to go for goals-wise? Goals from... I'm going to go for Joel Senior. I think he'll play one of these games, and I think he'll score. I'm taking a risk with that, aren't I? And Christian Dennis with the other goal. So there you go. Senior and Dennis. That's my predictions. Mike, you go next.
I'm going to go for 3-1, and I'm going to go Huntington. Dennis will get one. And I'll be a bit controversial as well. And I'll go Amari Patrick will get one as well.
Ooh, that's a good shout, actually, because he could be back for that game.
You've just took the wind from my sails.
Oh, go on, Dan.
I was going to go with a 1-1 draw, a late Amari Patrick equaliser, causing limbs in front of the hungover travelling Blue Army.
Oh, good shout, that one, Dan, I think. Right, well, that's the predictions out of the way. Let's talk, before we go on to the X-File section, a little bit about how we think United might do things over Christmas, because normally we just talk about the one game, don't we? But obviously in this case, we're going to have how many games in the space of a few days? I'm trying to work this out on the top of my head here now. So it's 3 games basically in the space of 7 days, essentially. How do you manage this one, Dan? Do Do you mix it up in each game? Is there any players you'd look to bring in potentially? Maybe starting with that Bradford game.
I think starting at the back, it all depends on John Mellish's fitness.
Yeah.
I think if Mellish is fit, he obviously slots on the left-hand side of the three. Yeah. Jack Ellis has been playing at right wing back. Joel Senior will fancy a bit of match time over the three games. We might see the progression to Senior coming back in for a bit. Midfield, I think Devitt might get a few minutes if he's holding up. Just take a little bit off Moxon and Guy. Reliance on them. Be interested to see if Sonny Hilton plays in any of these games at any point. Because he's fit again, isn't he?
Yeah, and he wasn't on the bench on Tuesday.
And I think up front sort of picks itself, really, because Dennis pretty much starts, and then you're probably looking at Stretton with Toby off the bench, possibly.
Yeah.
But there could be a game where he thinks, no, I'll start Toby tonight, with Edmonton likely out, Patrick possibly coming back to fitness, there's... Like I always say, who'd be a manager?
Mike, what's your thoughts?
Well, I think maybe for some of the older players, playing 3 full 90 minutes in 7 days might be a little bit much for them. Your likes of Huntington and maybe even Dennis. Dennis has played a lot of football so far this season. For someone who was, apparently not match fit when he signed, but if you listen to the interview that you had with him, that was a load of nonsense. So we might rotate players a little bit. I'd imagine that Show Silver is a lot fitter now.
Yeah.
You'd think, because he's been back in training for, I'd say, a good month or so now, hasn't he?
I think a lot will depend on the Bradford game. If we come out the blocks and smash them, you're not going to change that team, are you?
No, it's true.
So, the Bradford result will probably come into it as well. If we have a good win, it'd be harsh to change the winning team.
Although at the same time, if we are smashing them, it would maybe make sense to take a player off with 20, 30 minutes to go and rest him ahead of the other two games.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're pretty fair with your assessments there. Defensively wise, I don't think I would take any risks in terms of dropping Huntington for any of these games. I think he's smart enough to manage himself through the games. I think I agree with you, Dan. It massively depends on Mellish's fitness. That's the first question we've got to ask. Is he going to be fit? Is his knee going to be fine for those games? But I agree with you. I think I'd try and start to ease Senior into the team. And this is not a slight on Jack. Go on, sorry.
Sorry, I'm just thinking with Mellish, if he got whacked on the knee against Sutton, you're talking nearly 3 weeks ago, so it must have been a good whack to make him miss a game 2.5 weeks later.
Yeah. So we've probably been quite lucky those games have been off.
You're not talking a bruise. You're talking a good whack, so it'd be interesting to see when he is fit.
Yeah. I'd look to try and ease Senior into the team. This is not a slight on Ellis, who's done a fantastic job filling in at the right wing back position. And I think he's got a big future with us. I just think Joel Senior's going to offer you that bit more width and a bit more getting forward to support the attackers. And I think we could do with that at the moment. And I think we've got to try and work our way into getting him as your first choice right wing back by mid to late January, basically. That's what I'd like to see us trying to do, because I think he could really offer us something. Into midfield, I agree with you, Dan. I think Devitt. I wouldn't start Devitt against Bradford. I don't think I'd start him against Crewe. Obviously, it depends on, like you said, the result against Bradford. But I feel like Crewe's a game where a bit of a smaller, tighter pitch, a good technical player who can pick out a pass. I'd have him in for that game, definitely. I feel he can cause problems in there. And like I said, in attack, I think Dennis picks himself at the moment. But I'd probably start Toby against Bradford. I think a big nuisance like that, causing a few problems, would disturb their defence a little bit, and then you just bring Jack on a bit later on to run at them as well. So we've got options. It's funny that we've mentioned all this, and I don't think any of us have mentioned Jordan Gibson really in terms of do you bring him in or not. I think Charters has done I think he was okay the other night. Obviously, he was involved in the goal, but probably not as involved as he should have been. And I do wonder maybe if Edmondson particularly is going to be out as well, we could do with someone in there giving us a bit of width, maybe somebody who's going to stretch them a little bit more, and that's where Gibson can come in, maybe, I suppose.
I mean, I think maybe if Mellish isn't fit and if we hopefully go 4 at the back, rather than see Whelan in that left centre-back slot, we could maybe go 4-4-2 with Gibson sort of right mid and Charters out on the left.
Yeah. I feel like 4-3-3 is going to work better. I think you can dominate that midfield a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it's it's
who would be a manager, like Dan says.
Yes, indeed. Right, I think that's covered in terms of United fitness and who's going to be playing and stuff like that. So let's move on to the X-Files section, Dan. And there's a few in here, and I think it's going to start to increase over the next few weeks, as the games start to come back and, the World Cup being over and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, not too many. The weekend, Naki Wells scored for Bristol City in the 2-1 home defeat to Stoke. Gary Medine scored in Blackpool's 1-1 draw at his former club Cardiff.
He'll have enjoyed that, won't he? Because he didn't do very well at Cardiff.
I think he had a little bit of ag in the game, possibly with Penny NG, who Carlisle fans don't like. So
good lad.
Sam Cosgrove found the net for Plymouth Argyle in their 2-1 win over Morecambe, and Callum Higginbottom netted from the spot in Kelty Hearts' 2-1 win at Queen of the South. Midweek, a couple of FA Trophy goals. Big Byron Webster scored in Bromley's 2-2 draw at Bath, but they then got beat on penalties 5-4. A lot of these games were postponed from the weekend. Yeah. And Nathan Thomas scored a brace for York in a 5-0 win over Blythe. And those were his first goals since his hat-trick for Carlisle against Forest Green nearly 3 years ago.
It's astonishing, that, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about players having rotten luck with injuries. He's had some real rotten luck, hasn't he? So it's nice to see him back out there. I mean, he's still only 28. I can't believe it. When I looked up, I thought he must be like pushing about 30 now. 28 years old. So he's still got a chance, to build a decent career, you'd hope. And I suppose for him, the big thing for him is probably looking to January and thinking, okay, if I've done well here at York, can I get myself a move? And no, this is not me suggesting that we go for him. But I mean, hey, he's a good player, and he offers something different. But I think he'd probably be looking maybe at another National League club potentially, maybe a Wrexham or something like that might come in for him. You never know. But
I don't know. I mean, I reckon Hartlepool might be interested. He started off there, I think, didn't he? So
yeah, it's been one of the things. Maybe he's not fussed about going back there, but you never know, do you? But there you go. I think that's it, guys, isn't it? Bit of a bump along episode in terms of previewing the games coming up. But thanks once again to our sponsors, the London branch, for their support this season. In terms of upcoming episodes, you're going to get a Christmas Eve treat. I'm going to drop the John Halpin interview that day. It's all sorted. I've been basically waiting for my throat to get better to actually record the intro bit. So that's now in a good position. So I will get that recorded and we'll have it lined up to come out to you Christmas Eve morning. So you've got a nice little treat to listen to when you go into the match on Boxing Day. And as we mentioned before, Dan, I think we're going to look and do something a little bit different in the new year, aren't we? Maybe, and we'll look to basically we'll review the games that have been played over Christmas, but then we'll do a nice little sort of 2022 review, basically looking back at what's happened over the season. And we'll try and get all three of us on if we can. Maybe get some guests on as well to talk about it, and we'll look back how things have gone over a crazy year, really, isn't it? I think it's fair to say.
That's certainly one word of describing it. I know John Coleman had his little word thing. He asked fans to need to use one word to describe the past season.
I wonder what word Regan used on that one.
Yeah.
We all know, don't we? Lads, I think that'll cover it all. Thanks so much for joining me. And up the Blues.
Cheers. Up the Blues.
Up the Blues and Merry Christmas all.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.